"If you teach her to speak again, I'll give you everything," cried the billionaire CEO. But the janitor did it. Before we dive in, I want to know, where in the world are you watching from right now? Type your city in the comments so we can see just how far this story reaches. And when we get to the end, I dare you to rate it from 0 to 10 because this one might just break your heart. Now, enjoy the story. The long glass corridor of Harris Corporation gleamed under the lights, yet in that brightness Olivia could see only the darkness within her heart. She paused as laughter echoed down the hall, the first laughter of her daughter. But it wasn't for her. Ella was holding the hand of a simple janitor, giggling, her eyes sparkling with a joy Olivia had feared she would never see again. Her heart tightened painfully. She wanted to run and hug her daughter, yet she was terrified of shattering that precious moment. A solitary tear slipped down her cheek. And yet, amid the despair, a glimmer of hope appeared, an opportunity. A miracle for a powerful CEO to learn what it truly meant to be a mother, in a way her heart had never dared to dream. The strong yet helpless mother. Olivia Harper. A young and powerful CEO of Harper & Co. stood in the towering glass office, her hands trembling as she clutched a family photo. The cold white glow from the modern LED lights cast shadows across her face, highlighting a deep loneliness that neither power nor wealth could soothe. In that moment, memories surged back, the devastating accident that had taken her husband, and the clear, innocent voice of her child now existing only in dreams. Olivia's heart tightened. Part of her wanted to scream, yet another part could only stare at the photo, feeling the utter helplessness of a mother, strong in the world's eyes, but powerless in her own heart. The office, adorned with luxurious interiors and glass walls overlooking the glittering city, suddenly felt suffocating and oppressive, reflecting the isolation she had once believed existed only in long, solitary nights. Have you ever felt that power and wealth are helpless in the face of family pain? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes it's the pain itself that awakens us and helps us rediscover true love. Part 1. The first glimmer of light. The long corridor of Harris Group's headquarters gleamed so brightly that it reflected the glaring lights off the white marble floor. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls let daylight flood in, yet they also exposed the solitude of the powerful executive standing in a world of wealth and influence. James Carter, 34. The CEO walked briskly but without rush, clutching a bright red superhero hat he had just bought for Ella, his 4-year-old daughter. His heart beat faster than usual, not because of a new contract or shareholder pressure, but because for the first time in weeks his little girl could laugh. Ella stood in the middle of the corridor, her eyes wide with wonder, staring at her father. As James gently placed the superhero hat on her head, a tiny giggle escaped her lips, a pure melody cutting through the cold rigidity of the corporate environment. At the far end of the hall, Olivia, standing quietly, couldn't hold back her emotions, her eyes blurred with tears. For the first time since the accident that had stolen her daughter's clear, innocent voice, Olivia witnessed Ella's joy. A glimmer of hope flickered, defying months of despair, the walls of power, and the chilling indifference surrounding them. James bent down, voice trembling. "How does it feel? Is the superhero strong?" Ella raised her hand, pointing at the red hat and laughing even louder, a laughter so pure it seemed to melt the ice in her father's heart. Olivia stepped closer, trying to hide her emotions, yet her heartbeat raced in rhythm with her daughter's giggles. In that moment, amidst the cold light of the headquarters, a warm glow touched their hearts, promising brighter days ahead. Have you ever witnessed a simple moment so powerful that it made your heart ache? Share your feelings in the comments, because sometimes the smallest smiles shine the brightest in our lives. The corporate corridor remained dazzlingly bright, yet the light seemed to dim under the weight of emotions hanging in the air. James crouched down, keeping a firm grip on Ella, to prevent the hat from falling when his eyes met Olivia near the elevator. She wore a dark suit, her hair neatly tied back, her exterior composed, yet her eyes revealed a storm of emotions she could no longer hide. Ella suddenly noticed her mother. The smile on her little face remained intact, but her clear eyes were fixed on James, silently saying, "Dad is here, Mom. But now it's time to enjoy the moment with Dad." Olivia froze, her heart tightening in that fleeting instant. She realized her daughter could be happy, but not with her, not at this moment. A bittersweet pain mixed with hope surged through her, making her take a deep breath to hold back her tears. James looked up, noticing Olivia. A brief tension hung in the air. Two hearts, once distant and wounded, now stood across the shiny corridor, unsure where to start. His voice, deep yet warm, broke the silence. "Olivia?" She's smiling. For the first time. Ella's smile became an invisible bridge between their hearts, soothing years of built-up tension and hurt. Olivia stepped forward but stopped a few paces away, torn between wanting to approach and fearing to break the moment. This emotionally charged instant could leave any witness breathless, hope opening slightly, yet grief still intact. In the brief silence, the corridor seemed to listen to her daughter's heartbeat, and laughter a place where love and pain intertwined. If you've ever experienced a moment where your heart ached and warmed at the same time, share it in the comments. Sometimes simple glances and smiles speak louder than words. The corporate corridor continued to sparkle under the cold yellow lights, but the air now felt thick with suppressed emotions. James crouched to be at eye level with Ella, gently setting the superhero hat on the floor, then reached out his hand. "Come on, let's try flying together, okay?" The little girl bounced lightly onto his hand, eyes sparkling, and laughter rang out, pure innocent, but each giggle cut sharply into Olivia's heart. Olivia stayed close to the wall, her heart thumping with each laugh. She had once been the only mother, the only source of support for her daughter, but now she could only watch from afar. In the midst of this emotional tension, Olivia felt a flicker of hope. Seeing her daughter smile, she realized James wasn't the enemy, but part of the happiness she thought was lost. James turned to Olivia, his eyes filled with promise. "Olivia, if you want, we can learn slowly to be parents together, not strangers anymore." His words echoed through the corridor, breaking the cold wall Olivia had built around her heart. Olivia took a deep breath, a tear rolling down her cheek. Step by step, she approached as if fighting with herself. When her hand finally rested on James's shoulder, an unspoken connection formed. Two people, two worlds now finding support in each other. Ella clapped her hands, shouting, "Dad, Mom." The child's joyful cries soothed the pain and opened a new path where hope and love began to walk side by side. If you've ever experienced a moment where pain and happiness intertwine, share it in the comments, because sometimes a small act can change an entire heart. The small meeting room at the end of the corridor, where soft light filtered through beige curtains, became the stage for a fateful moment. James sat down at the table, gently opening the music box Ella once adored. The melody filled the room, and the little girl swayed slightly to the tune. Olivia stood by the door, hands clasped tightly, trying to suppress the rush of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Watching James care for their daughter, Olivia felt a warmth she had thought lost forever. The emotional intensity peaked as Ella ran to him, wrapping her tiny arms around his neck, eyes sparkling with happiness. "Daddy, you won't leave me, right?" Her voice was pure, yet trembling. James lowered himself gently, cupping her face in his hands, locking eyes with her. "I'll never leave you, Ella." Olivia's heart tightened painfully. She stepped forward, overwhelmed by feelings that were both jealousy and gratitude. She realized she could not keep her daughter solely for herself, but she could choose to collaborate to let love, not just the mothers or fathers, but the love of a family, creep back into their lives. The moment felt like magic. The pressure and tension of the CEO world seemed to dissipate, giving way to genuine connection. James looked at Olivia, eyes full of hope. "We'll do this together, step by step, slowly, but together." Olivia nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek, a shy smile breaking through. Have you ever witnessed a moment that touched your heart so deeply you could not put it into words? Share it in the comments, because sometimes a glance or a tiny smile can change a life. The gleaming corridors of Harris Group now felt eerily quiet. Pale yellow light from the ceiling lamps reflected off the cold marble floor, creating a space both luxurious and intimate. Olivia stood beside the tall glass column, silently watching a scene she had thought she would never see. James, crouched, eyes radiant, catching Ella as she ran across the floor, her superhero hat slightly askew, forming a sight both endearing and heartwarming to the point of tears. Suddenly, Ella turned to Olivia, her clear eyes full of wonder and trust. "Mom, look, Dad is playing with me." Her soft laughter rang out, carrying an emotional weight that made Olivia pause, her heart aching. In that instant, all the pain, all the lonely nights, all the despair seemed to vanish, replaced by a new glimmer of hope, a hope for a real family where love was no longer divided by loss or fear. James stood up, looking at Olivia, a smile both confident and gentle on his face. "Can we start over? Not just for Ella, but for ourselves, too." Olivia took a deep breath, eyes misted, and nodded. A mixture of excitement and relief filled her, as if the cold, high-pressure CEO world had given way to warmth, honesty, and humanity. Ella ran to hug her mother, then bounced back to her father, jumping in pure joy. Olivia watched her heart melting, a tear rolling down her cheek, this time a tear of hope, trust, and a new but powerful love. And you? Have you ever experienced a moment that made you realize love and patience can heal everything? Share your story in the comments, because sometimes just one story is enough to spark a light in hearts that feel hopeless. Chapter 2. A Desperate Proposal. The corridors of Harris Group were bathed in cold light. The shadows of towering chandeliers cast shifting patterns on the polished marble floor, reflecting Olivia's turbulent emotions. She walked slowly, gripping her handbag tightly, heart pounding in her chest. Each step felt heavier, burdened not only by the weight of this luxurious CEO environment, but also by the responsibility she carried. As a mother, she had to find a way to bring her daughter back from permanent silence. James stood by the glass window, eyes focused on the distant cityscape. As Olivia approached, all sounds seemed to vanish: the hum of elevators, the footsteps of staff, everything faded except the rapid beat of her heart. She took a deep breath, trying to suppress the surge of emotions. "James." Her voice was trembling, hoarse but resolute, echoing in the vast corridor. James turned, eyes wide with surprise and concern. Olivia looked directly at him, her eyes shining yet fierce with determination. If you help my daughter speak again, I will. I'll give you everything, everything I have." Her words were raw, a challenge to fate itself, yet tinged with emotional intensity that made James's heart tighten. In that moment, Olivia stood there, both strong and fragile, desperate yet proud. She wasn't seducing or begging. She was channeling all her trust, hope, and helplessness as a mother into a single man, the one who could change her child's life. James remained silent for a long moment, eyes never leaving Olivia, heart gripped by the incredible proposal. From deep within, he felt the pain, the longing, and the boundless love she held for her daughter, a love that no lucrative CEO contract could ever buy. Have you ever faced a moment when a single word could change the fate of someone you love? Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if you were in Olivia's place? James stayed rooted by the window, hand still resting against the glass, his expression a mixture of concern and astonishment. He had never heard such a daring and straightforward plea. In the extravagant CEO world where everything could be bought with money and power, Olivia's request was something he had never encountered: a mother's absolute faith placed squarely on his shoulders. Olivia didn't look away, holding her position as if standing there alone could compel James to agree. The corridor was so silent that every breath, every heartbeat sounded louder than the city beyond the glass. Her heart felt as if it would shatter as she noticed the hesitation in his eyes, a glimmer of hope flickering, then vanishing in fear. James took a step closer, voice low and slightly strained. "Olivia, it's not simple. The girl, losing her voice isn't something I can fix in a day." His words carried both warning and challenge, stretching Olivia's desperation moment by moment. Yet within the chaos, a spark of hope remained, like a small flame flickering in the dark. Olivia drew a deep breath, struggling to brush away tears. "I know, but if you refuse..." My daughter will never speak again. I have nothing left to lose." Her tone, both determined and pained, struck James deeply. He had never seen a mother willing to stake everything, wealth, power, and pride, on the love for her child. The corridor seemed to hold its breath, an emotional intensity so thick it was palpable. James felt his chest tighten, eyes fixed on Olivia. Heart stirring with a simple truth. Sometimes it's not money or power, but pure emotion that compels action. The hallway remained silent, the cold LED lights reflecting off the glossy floor echoing every step of James and Olivia. Little Ella stood beside her mother, wide-eyed and confused, not yet comprehending the scene unfolding. James inhaled deeply, attempting to suppress the mix of astonishment and emotion swelling within him. For the first time, he saw a child look at him with absolute trust, a trust that not even money or power could buy. "We'll start with the simplest thing," James said, voice slightly trembling, as if trying to maintain distance but unable to look away from Ella. He took out a superhero hat, the light reflecting off its surface, catching Ella's wide eyes. "If you can smile and say, 'superhero,' that will be the first step." Ella raised her brows, innocence shining in her gaze. Olivia stood behind, heart pounding, wanting to intervene, yet knowing this was a moment Ella needed to choose for herself. She clutched her hands tightly, silently praying, "You can do it, Ella." Then a small miracle happened. Ella giggled, a pure, clear sound echoing in the cold corridor, but no words yet. James watched her, a mix of tenderness and ache surging in his chest. He knelt, lifting the superhero hat, gently placing it on her head. "Just once try it," he whispered. In that instant, an emotional surge, Tunguyat Kamksuk, exploded. Ella opened her mouth, producing a clumsy but distinct sound. "She." Olivia's heart shattered and soared at the same time. Tears streamed down her face. She wanted to embrace her daughter immediately, but stayed still, allowing James to continue guiding her. James himself could not hide his emotion. For the first time in his life, the cold CEO felt his heart stirred, captivated by the innocence of a child. The corridor's light reflected off the polished floor, but this time it no longer felt cold. A mixture of anticipation and hope crept into every step Olivia and James took. Ella stood there, eyes glistening with tears, yet full of curiosity, as if she had just realized the world could hold miracles she had never known before. James knelt, placing the superhero hat gently on Ella's head, his hand trembling from both tension and emotion. "Now try saying it a little louder." "Superhero," he whispered, eyes following her every tiny movement. Ella parted her lips, and this time the sound came out clearer. "See." Olivia held her breath, heart nearly stopping. She wanted to rush forward and hug her child, but she understood that this moment required patience. If she rushed, it might frighten her. "Take your time, my love," she murmured, tears silently streaming, but a radiant smile spread across her face. When James lightly touched Ella's shoulder, it seemed to give her a surge of confidence. And then a small, yet powerful miracle occurred. She spoke the full words, "superhero time," seemed to freeze in that instant. Olivia embraced her daughter, the despair of years melting away, leaving only overwhelming happiness. James rose to his feet, heart pounding with every beat, feeling for the first time the power of emotion, hope, and the responsibility tied to an unpredictable life. Has anyone ever witnessed a child's miraculous moment and felt their heart melt? James asked softly, his voice warm yet deep. To everyone watching, he added, "Share your own experiences. Sometimes a first word can heal even the deepest wounds." The corridor now radiated an unusual warmth. The light from the ceiling no longer felt cold. It gently bathed the three of them, merging into a vivid portrait of hope and love. Olivia held Ella close, their hearts beating in sync, and in that instant all the pain of the past seemed to dissolve. James stood beside them, looking at mother and daughter, eyes filled with amazement and admiration. He could not deny that Olivia's desperation had reached him so powerfully that even his hardened heart softened. She has found her strength through her own love," he thought, voice barely trembling. Ella reached up to touch her mother's face, then turned shyly, yet innocently, toward James. "Soup, Riro." Her laughter filled the corridor, pure and crystalline like a hymn of hope, stirring even the most jaded souls. Olivia looked at James, tears streaming not from sorrow, but from the realization that in this moment the three of them had discovered a true connection, a bridge of emotions they had once thought impossible. James knelt down, lifting Ella's small hand, gently giving her a tender look. "You did it. I'm so proud of you." Olivia watched them, gratitude swelling deep within. She realized that not money or power, but patience and a sincere heart could erase any distance. Before turning away, James glanced at the camera, his voice deep, warm, and full of emotion. Have you ever witnessed a seemingly small moment that changed a life? Share your story, because sometimes a single word, a smile, can become the light that guides the whole world. Part 3. Ella's first steps into her world. In the small corridor at the end of the office, where golden sunlight slanted through the white walls, James had transformed the space into a temporary art corner. Sheets of white paper were spread across the floor, colors smeared on James's hands and clothes, a powerful CEO, now looking as messy and curious as a child. Ella stood pressed against her mother, eyes wide with wonder. She had never been this close to a stranger before, especially not a man like James, so commanding and unfamiliar. Olivia stood silently, heart heavy, as she watched her daughter's maternal instincts urging her forward. Yet James's gaze silently said, "Let her choose for herself." James knelt down, voice low but full of warmth. "Ella, do you want to draw with me? I'll draw a bird, and you can draw the sky." He sketched a small bird with outstretched wings, lines shaky yet alive. The gesture seemed simple, but it became the first bridge between the silent world of the little girl and James's eager, open heart. Ella slowly lifted her hand. At first, just a few dots, then lines began to curve and take shape. A soft, trembling giggle escaped her. Her first laugh Olivia had heard since the accident. Olivia's knees weakened. The mix of pain and joy surged through her. She realized that hope was finally flickering again after months of despair. James watched Ella, eyes both serious and gentle. He smiled, leaning in to whisper, "You're doing so well. Our bird is about to take flight." The small, tender gesture carried a ripple of strength, filling the corridor with a strange yet magical warmth. Sunlight stretched long shadows across the floor. James sat down, legs tucked beneath him, placing the box of crayons beside him. Ella sat opposite, initially clinging to her mother, but gradually drawn by James's patient gentleness. He smiled, extending a hand, not pressing, just inviting. "Try drawing bigger wings." "I'll wait." Ella took a deep breath, fingers trembling as they traced the first curves. Each stroke was a small effort, a quiet voice struggling to emerge. James followed each movement, eyes focused, yet soft, thinking. No rush, just let her feel it. He even feigned clumsiness when he accidentally knocked over the crayon box, making Ella burst into laughter, the innocent giggle Olivia had never witnessed before. Olivia stood behind them, heart pounding. The mix of joy and ache twisted within her. Every mother wants to be the sole source of her child's laughter, yet she understood that James's gentle, sincere presence was unlocking a door she could not open alone. Despair was replaced by a flicker of hope. Ella blinked at James, then whispered a single word, "Uncle," her first word since the accident. James froze, heart-clenched eyes shimmering. Olivia's chest tightened, but joy surged within her. Her daughter was rediscovering her voice, finding a connection to the world. In that moment, the corridor no longer felt cold, the office no longer silent. Only laughter and first words echoed like magic. James gently held Ella's hand. "So this is how we begin. Together." The corridor seemed to warm further as James placed a large sheet of paper on the floor. "Today we'll draw the whole sky," he said, voice calm and reassuring as if to ease every worry in Ella. She looked up, eyes full of hesitation yet curiosity. Part of her was still afraid, but another part longed to play, to try to feel peace. James carefully drew fluffy clouds, then small birds soaring above. He pretended to be a flying bird, clapping and hopping, making Ella giggle again, the sound ringing through the usually silent corridor. Olivia watched quietly, feeling pain and happiness intertwined. Pain because she wasn't yet the center of that laughter happiness, because her daughter was opening her heart. James gently lifted a crayon and placed it in Ella's hand. "Go ahead, you can do even better than me," he encouraged. Ella hesitated, then looked up at him. A single glance and the space seemed to freeze. She nodded slightly. Her first strokes were tentative, then grew stronger, soaring like the laughter and hope returning to her. James felt his heart still for a moment, not because of power or wealth, but because of this fragile, sacred moment. Olivia, standing a little apart, felt her heart ache. She feared losing him, yet she wanted to trust that this gentleness would not take her daughter away. Emotional intensity swelled for the first time in months. Ella's laughter and drawings were no longer empty. They were a bridge, a sign of a miracle in progress. The narrow corridor had suddenly become a private world, one filled only with Ella's laughter, the smeared colors on the paper, and the soft golden glow from the ceiling lights. James sat cross-legged on the floor, putting his entire heart into every gesture, every word, allowing Ella to feel the safety she had never known before. "Look," he said, eyes shining yet gentle, "your bird is flying higher than mine." It was a quiet reminder that she deserved freedom, that she deserved joy. Ella laughed, but then frowned as her line wavered. James gently leaned down, placing his hand over hers to guide her. The touch made Olivia's heart ache, a blend of pain and hope, as she realized her daughter was opening herself to another person. Perhaps this was exactly what Ella needed, a way to learn to trust the world once more. Emotional intensity surged, a silent tear threatening to fall. The pain softened into tenderness. Hope mingled with wistfulness, a complex fragment of life only love and patience could heal. James continued to chatter, making whimsical sounds, telling stories of birds flying across continents. Ella's laughter rang out pure and clear, the first time she had forgotten the darkness of her loss, the fears she had clung to. Every giggle, every stroke of her crayon was a small but meaningful step, an invisible bridge connecting her to the world, to James, and indirectly to Olivia. "You know," James said, eyes deep and sincere, "every time you laugh, it feels like the whole world lights up." Ella looked up at him, her tiny heart fluttering, realizing that she wasn't the only one learning to open up. James was learning to listen to his own heart too, a heart that hadn't felt this alive in a long time. The corridor echoed only with the scratching of pencils on paper and the steady breaths of two souls slowly drawing closer. James carefully lifted the small drawing eyes, sparkling. "You see," he whispered, "this bird isn't just flying. It's carrying all the things you've never dared to say." Ella looked at the picture, then slowly placed a hand over her heart. A single tear slid down her cheek, yet her smile remained. James held her small hand, gently trembling it, as if to transmit the message, "There's nothing left to fear." Olivia stood behind them, silent, her whole body shaking. She had just witnessed her daughter opening her inner world while also realizing how loneliness had almost frozen her own heart for so long. The emotional climax surged as James whispered, "Ella, if you want, you can tell me anything. I will listen." Ella blinked, then slowly uttered her first words in months. "Da. Da." Olivia gasped, tears streaming, her heart shattering into a mixture of joy and astonishment. Emotional intensity overflowed. This was not just a miracle for Olivia, but also for James, a man who once believed he only knew work and power, experiencing the most vivid, alive moment of his life. The corridor suddenly felt warm, the golden light softening, reflecting off the messy but lively drawings. James bent down, holding Ella in his arms, a full, heartfelt smile on his face. Olivia stepped forward, lightly touching his shoulder. That single touch conveyed a silent love and boundless gratitude. Have you ever witnessed a small miracle that could change someone's entire world? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes just a smile or a single word is enough to make a heart melt. Part 4. The First Hello. The afternoon settled over the Harris Corporation's high-rise office, soft golden sunlight streaming through the towering windows, painting long streaks across the polished wooden floor. The quiet was so profound that even the ticking of the clock echoed like a pounding heartbeat. James stood in the center of the room, his gaze focused yet restless, watching the corridor where Ella quietly took tentative steps. She paused, looking around, her clear eyes reflecting the light as if searching for a new world, a place where all fears could dissolve. James smiled faintly, raising his hand in greeting, yet his chest tightened. Would she recognize him? Or would the hello he longed for remain just a dream? Take your time. There's no rush. Ella, James whispered, his voice warm, yet carrying the deep resonance of a man who had only known work and power. He crouched slightly, keeping just enough distance to let her feel safe. Their breaths almost synchronized with the sunlight streaming through the corridor, freezing time in that perfect moment. Suddenly, Ella's lips curved into a small smile, a light, fleeting gesture that made James's heart race. He leaned lower, lifting his hand to wave gently. "Hello, Ella?" His heart seemed to explode when, after months of silence, she softly voiced her first sound, "She-lo." The words were awkward, tentative, yet pure, filling the room with light. James froze, tears welling in his eyes, and emphasized, "You did it. You're amazing." Olivia, standing behind, could no longer hold back. She rushed forward, pulling her little girl into her arms. Tears streamed down her face like rain, her smile a mixture of joy, relief, and infinite gratitude. The audience of hearts could almost pause with them, leaving only the echo of that first hello, a sound that shattered and healed all at once. The sunlight now glowed amber gold, bathing the corridor and Ella's small face in a warm hue. James knelt down, eyes locked on hers, silently conveying all the patience and love he had stored in his heart. Every tiny sound she made, even the smallest squeak, seemed to unravel months of pain and despair. "You can do it. I know you can," he whispered, his voice trembling yet steadfast. He didn't want to miss a single moment, didn't want any fear to make her retreat. And then, in what seemed like a normal instant, Ella shrugged slightly, eyes wide as she looked at him, and softly uttered, "He-lo." James grasped her tiny hand, his heart ready to burst. Daily pressures, contracts, meetings. Everything he once prized seemed meaningless before her small voice. He took a deep breath, holding back the overwhelming emotion. "You did it. Truly amazing, Ella. Papa is so proud of you." Olivia, hands clutching her chest, felt her heart skip a beat. She wasn't only moved that her daughter had spoken, but also by how James, a man known for his strength and coldness, was showing up as a gentle, patient father. That moment became an invisible thread connecting them all, a faint glimmer of hope that everything could change, that happiness could return. Ella laughed for the first time truly, and that laughter felt like magic, dispelling the long months of darkness. James lifted her into his arms, gently holding her close, a new determination forming in his heart. He would never let anything stand in the way of that laughter and voice again. The afternoon stretched on slowly, the amber sunlight spilling over the glass corridor as if trying to capture every moment. James stayed kneeling, eyes never leaving Ella. This time he not only looked but listened to every breath, every tiny gesture. Her fingers brushed against the drawing, then his hand transmitting both fear and curiosity. "Can you say it one more time?" Ella, James asked, his voice low, soft, a mixture of plea and promise. Ella looked at him, eyes glimmering with doubt, but also a spark of newly budding trust. She lifted her lips, her small voice breaking out haltingly. "He-lo, pa." James could hardly believe his ears. His heart raced as if trying to leap from his chest. Each word was more than a simple hello. It was a breakthrough from months of darkness, a first connection. He held her tighter, resting his head against her soft hair. And in that instant, all the pressures of being a CEO, the stressful meetings and private sorrows melted away. Olivia stood outside her chest, tightening, tears streaming uncontrollably. She realized that not all happiness had to come from power or wealth. Sometimes it appeared in fleeting moments from patience and unconditional love. Emotional intensity. The first words of her child left her feeling helpless, yet hopeful, pained, yet overjoyed. James looked at Olivia, eyes silently saying, "We will start over. Together." And Olivia returned a fragile smile, tears still falling. but her heart beginning to feel light again. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through every crack of the windows, casting golden rays across Ella's small face, making her soft, bouncy hair glow like fire. James remained kneeling, holding her gently, but this time not to restrain, but to encourage. Every breath he took seemed to be waiting for a miracle, a small signal from Ella. She looked around the corridor, eyes still hesitant but curious. A tiny giggle escaped, and from her small throat came a clear sound, "Hello." James froze, his heart exploding. That hello wasn't just a greeting. It shattered the wall of silence Ella had built since losing her voice. He felt every ounce of pain, fear, and hope compressed into that single syllable. Olivia stood nearby, her steps, faltering eyes red and glistening. Her heart was a mix of joy and ache. She realized that no matter how much power a CEO might wield, it could never buy these first precious moments. The look exchanged between James and Ella spoke volumes without a word. Emotional intensity, the first words of her child, cut through months of despair, painful yet liberating. James smiled and waved slowly, as if trying to imprint the moment into both of their memories. Ella repeated, her voice clearer this time. "Hello." Then came a bright, natural giggle. He drew a deep breath, holding her close, and for the first time felt that every effort, every exhausted heartbeat had been worth it. The scene-light laughter and the simple hello was like a gentle melody, soothing the deepest wounds. Olivia realized that sometimes happiness isn't about perfection, but about unexpected, fleeting moments that make the heart leap. The corridor was silent again, only the sunlight spilling through the glass and the sound of James's racing heartbeat filling the space. Ella stood before him, her eyes shimmering with a sky full of hope and fear. Her tiny voice, clear for the first time, rang out, "Hello, Daddy." James froze as if turned to stone. Everything else disappeared. Only the girl and her loving call remained. Each word, each syllable struck his heart, breaking through the cold and lonely months spent in the high-powered CEO office. Emotional intensity, the first time his daughter called him, brought him to the verge of tears, right there in the luxurious corridor that had once been filled only with pressure, ambition, and numbers. Olivia approached quietly, her gaze filled with surprised sorrow and hope. She realized that in a world governed by power and money, pristine, pure moments like this still existed, moments that could move even the hardest hearts. She saw love not only in James's eyes for Ella, but in his actions, his care, patience, and unconditional trust. Ella stepped closer, her tiny hands resting on his chest. James inhaled deeply, his arms trembling as he held his daughter. A pure, innocent smile spread across Ella's face, and for the first time, all three, James, Olivia, and Ella, felt a wordless, powerful connection. The pressures of the CEO's office, the responsibilities, the pain, all melted away in that instant. James whispered, "You know Daddy has been waiting for your voice all these months." Ella giggled, her voice crystal clear. "Daddy." Chapter 5. A New Distance. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Harris penthouse living room, casting long golden streaks across the polished wooden floor. Olivia stood by the window frame, her fingers tightening slightly around her handbag, eyes fixed on James and Ella. She watched as her daughter rested her head on James's shoulder, laughter spilling from her lips mixed with the cheerful sounds Olivia hadn't heard in months. Her heart raced. A surge of jealousy hit her suddenly and cruelly. She had once been the only one to bring that smile to Ella's face, the only one who knew how to soothe her cries. But now, James, with his patience and gentle, undeniable warmth, was filling the void she had once occupied. A sense of disorientation, both painful and frightening, enveloped her. Olivia took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "This is just a moment," she whispered to herself, but her heart refused to listen. She felt herself standing outside, powerless, watching her daughter be captivated by someone else's warm gaze and strong embrace. Emotional intensity ran through her like ice. The fear of losing her place wasn't just about love, it was about influence in Ella's heart and her family. James remained oblivious to Olivia's pained gaze, still engrossed in playful antics, dancing along with Ella's laughter. Olivia closed her eyes, struggling to restrain herself, but tears slipped silently down her cheeks. The feeling of being replaced of her daughter's heart, fully devoted to another strong, genuine, complete, made her knees weaken. She exhaled slowly and stepped back toward the doorway. What should I do? She wondered, swallowed by confusion. Did she still have a place in Ella's heart, or had it all been claimed by the man standing right before her, leaning against the cold wall? Sunlight filtering through the glass windows painted her tense face in gold. Inside, a storm of emotions raged: jealousy, fear, helplessness, and a tiny glimmer of hope that she still had a chance to reclaim her place in Ella's heart. Olivia inhaled deeply, fighting the urge to let her tears fall, and told herself, I can't just stand here and watch my child drift away. Every time James bent down, gently touching Ella's shoulder, Olivia felt her heart tighten. She knew that if she didn't act, the distance between her and her daughter would only grow. In that moment, Olivia made a decision. She would fight not with power or money, but with love and patience. She stepped out of the shadows, each small step, deliberate, watching James play with Ella. If she's speaking with him, then at least I must find a way to speak with her, she whispered firmly. Taking out her phone, Olivia opened a children's language app she had used before and secretly recorded her own voice, reading simple phrases, "Mommy is here, my love." Each word felt like a bridge, a gentle reminder that her love had never left. James remained unaware, but Olivia felt every small movement, every faint shift of her daughter. Emotional intensity hit her, the pain of being pushed aside, but also a fragile spark of hope. She promised herself she would not let her daughter slip away completely. The scene closed with Olivia, standing silently, eyes fixed on James and Ella, determination burning brightly in her chest. A question lingered for the audience. Have you ever felt lost in your child's heart? How do you hold on to love when an invisible distance appears? Olivia drew a long, steadying breath, trying to calm her racing heartbeat. She stepped out of the hallway corner, her steps heavy but resolute. Each step reminded her she was no longer the mother standing on the sidelines. She needed to act to be a support for her daughter. James was still kneeling, arms around Ella, smiling at her. The sight made Olivia's chest ache, but instead of retreating, she moved forward, trying to steady her voice. Ella, Mommy's here. Her voice trembled, yet it was enough to catch her daughter's attention. Ella turned slightly, her eyes sparkling as she looked at her mother, then back at James. Olivia understood her daughter was torn between two important figures in her life. Pressure surged within her, but she bent down, opening her arms gently without force, inviting, Mommy just wants to hug you for a little while. Okay. James stood, giving Olivia a small space, though his eyes never left their daughter, thoughtful, cautious. Olivia stepped closer. This time, Ella shifted slightly, her tiny hand brushing her mother's arm. A quiet, emotional moment unfolded. Olivia could almost hear her daughter's heartbeat syncing with her own. Jealousy had not vanished, but it transformed into something different. A pure hope that she could be near her daughter, not through power or wealth, but with patience and true love. Emotional intensity surged. She realized nothing could compare to this moment, when a child chose the love of her mother, even through the smallest touch. The scene closed with Olivia holding her daughter, eyes glistening, gentle, yet determined. Olivia remained standing beside James and Ella, but this time she decided not to rely solely on gestures. She needed to use words. The late afternoon light streamed through the glass doors, casting a golden glow along the hallway, creating a scene both warm and tense. Mom, you're here too, Ella whispered, her voice small, slightly trembling. Olivia smiled, trying to hide the tears threatening to fall. I'm always here, my love. I will never leave you. James tilted his head, looking at Olivia with a calm, thoughtful gaze, as if silently saying she's her mother, but the little one needs time to choose. Olivia sensed the subtlety in his eyes, yet she did not falter. She inhaled deeply, stepped closer, and gently placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Ella softly grasped her mother's hand, her eyes shimmering as she looked at both adults standing together. Breaking the silence, James spoke, his voice deep yet warm. "Olivia, you're doing great. She needs to see you there, patient and full of love." His simple words struck Olivia like lightning, startling her yet soothing the pain she had carried for so long. Choking back her emotions, her voice trembling, Olivia admitted, I'm scared of losing her, James. She smiles at you, rests her head on your shoulder. I'm afraid. James placed his hand gently on hers. No one can take her away. But you have to trust Ella has the right to find her own joy, and you will be there with her, not as a rival. In that moment, the glances, the smiles, the tears, Olivia realized that love is not possession. It is patience and trust in her child's heart. Emotional intensity washed over her, making her heart feel both shattered and overjoyed. Olivia took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving Ella. She recognized that no matter how jealous she felt, her love for her daughter remained paramount. The afternoon sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating the hallway, creating streaks of light that seemed to shine directly on her heavy heart. Ella still leaned against James, but this time she turned her head, looking at her mother with shining eyes and a tentative smile. Olivia gently knelt to meet her daughter's gaze, her voice soft but firm. "Mom, I know I was scared, but I promise I will always be here for you, to make you laugh, to listen, and to learn to trust you more every day." James stood nearby, nodding, arms crossed, yet eyes softened. "Olivia, you've done well. She feels your love. Sometimes the distance is only temporary, and patience will mend everything." Ella hesitated, then slowly reached out to take her mother's hand. The sensation made Olivia feel as though she had exploded with relief. All her fears, jealousy, and past despair melted away. She rested her forehead against her daughter's tiny hand, feeling her heartbeat and warmth, a heartbeat, and warmth she thought had been lost forever. In that instant, the hallway seemed to shine brilliantly in Olivia's eyes, but more importantly, her heart lit up. James stepped closer, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. No distance remained, only companionship and understanding. No one was a rival anymore. They were a family, imperfect, yet gradually becoming whole. Emotional intensity surged, making the audience's hearts clench, both tense and delightfully elated. If you were in Olivia's shoes, what would you do to bridge the distance with someone you love? Share your story in the comments and connect with other hearts. Chapter 6. The Bridge Rebuilt. The small lounge in the Harris Tower was bathed in the golden glow of sunset, each streak of light slipping through the curtains to create soft lines across the polished wooden floor. Olivia sat in the armchair, her hands clasped tightly, heart racing yet heavy with regret. She glanced around the room, simple, unpretentious, unlike the CEO's office, but it was the warmth of the space that made her feel safe enough to open her heart. James stood near the window, silently watching her. His gaze carried a mixture of doubt and hope. He knew she was wrestling with herself, and the silence now was heavier than any words could be. "Olivia, do you want to say something?" His voice was deep, yet no longer cold. It held patience, an invitation to speak. Olivia drew a deep breath, her eyes glistening. "James, I know I've been selfish, fearful, and I've missed so many precious moments with Ella. I'm sorry, and I want us to rebuild this bridge for us." Her words fell like dewdrops onto his heart, gentle yet striking, straight into the emotions he had kept restrained. James stepped closer, lowering his gaze to meet hers, peering into the glimmering tears. "Olivia, you're not alone in this. She needs both of us, and so do we. If you truly want to work together, I'm ready." In that moment, the room became unusually still. No distance remained, no lingering doubts, only a slow budding understanding. Olivia smiled, her lips trembling with emotion, feeling that even the smallest step she had taken had laid the first brick of a strong bridge. The emotional intensity silenced the room. All the mistakes, jealousy, and fears, everything could be healed if hearts genuinely wanted it. Olivia and James walked into the small playroom where Ella was lying on the carpet, toys scattered everywhere. The late afternoon light streamed through the window, illuminating her golden hair, forming a gentle halo around her innocent face. Olivia froze for a moment, taking in the scene, realizing just how many precious moments she had missed during their time apart. James knelt beside Ella, picking up a soft, plush bear and gently placing it in her hands. "Ella, look. This bear says hello to you," he said, his voice warm with a touch of humor. Ella giggled, reaching out to touch the bear, her eyes wide with curiosity as they met his. Olivia moved closer, sitting across from her daughter, her heart nearly bursting. She's still smiling at him. She whispered, both joyful and anxious, afraid to lose this treasure. But James smiled, never taking over, instead, subtly including her. "Olivia, let's draw a little bird together. Whoever draws it best wins." The three of them laughed together. Ella began scribbling the first playful lines. Olivia felt the connection return, no jealousy, no distance, only pure love. James gently held her hand. "We'll do this together, one day at a time, for Ella and for ourselves." In that moment, Olivia realized happiness wasn't about control or dominance, but trust and shared joy. Healing had become tangible, and tears of emotion welled in her eyes. She moved to the window frame, bathed in the golden sunset light. Watching Ella play with James, her heart was warm, yet tinged with fear. "I can trust him. But if things go back to the way they were, I won't forgive easily," she murmured, her voice trembling but resolute. James turned to her, eyes heavy, yet filled with sincerity. He stepped closer, taking her hand and placing it gently over his chest. "Olivia, I don't want to just help her. I want to build a family with you, a future where neither of us feels alone again." Olivia closed her eyes, feeling his heartbeat through his hand, and slowly trust began to blossom. This was no empty promise. James looked at her with unshakable determination. I'll try to trust you," she exhaled, smiling through her tears. James nodded, his smile gentle yet strong. "One day at a time. I won't let you go through that pain again." He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to Ella's forehead, then turned to Olivia. "And you too believe that we can do this." Together, the three of them shared a moment, free from fear, free from distance. Olivia cherished each rare, peaceful second, knowing the bridge between her and James had been rebuilt, solid and unbreakable. This moment marked both the end of misunderstandings and the beginning of a new journey, a journey of trust, love, and growth. Olivia held James's hand tightly, her eyes shining with renewed hope, while Ella laughed aloud, feeling the warmth of love surrounding her. The small lounge was now bathed in the brilliant glow of sunset, the last rays of the day slipping through the window, casting the silhouettes of three figures across the warm wooden floor. Olivia sat on the sofa watching James play with Ella, her gaze tender yet full of emotion. For the first time in months, she felt her heart unburdened by anxiety and guilt. Ella, with her soft curly hair, beamed as James pulled silly faces, nodding as if she understood every gesture, every word. James laughed, his deep, warm voice echoing in the quiet room. "You truly are the smartest little girl in the world. Who taught you to laugh so loudly?" Olivia watched in silence, a wave of happiness mingled with a hint of shyness rising in her chest. She knew these moments were proof that the bridge they had just rebuilt was not merely a promise on lips, but an act, a presence, and genuine love. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the warmth of her little family enveloping her. James turned to her, his eyes serious, yet gentle. "Olivia, I want you to know that from now on, everything will be different. We will do this together. No one will be left behind." His words were not just a promise, but a spiritual anchor, helping Olivia feel her broken pieces being gently stitched back together. As the last sunlight faded behind the building, the three of them sat together, no words needed. Only laughter, shared glances, and the peace that spread throughout the room. That moment became a milestone where Olivia realized that love and trust do not always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it is the small, simple actions that carry the deepest meaning. The The lounge seemed so quiet that every heartbeat was perceptible. Olivia stood in front of James, trembling slightly, but her eyes determined. She took a deep breath, her voice low but filled with emotion. "James, thank you for being there for her. I know I can't do this alone, but I want you to know I'm ready to cooperate, ready to trust." James stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder, his gaze warm yet steadfast. "Olivia, from now on, no one will be alone. We'll raise Ella together, heal the wounds of the past together. I promise nothing will ever stand in the way of our little family." Ella sat between them, shyly smiling, but her eyes sparkled as if she understood that her parents were finding each other again. She reached out, clasping both their hands in her tiny ones, and a sense of warmth spread through the room. Olivia couldn't hold back her tears, but this time they were tears of joy, washing away every trace of tension and fear. In that moment, the sunset light streamed through the window, illuminating all three faces, as if painting a perfect picture of trust and love. Every distance, every doubt, every past hurt seemed to dissolve in their shared breath. Olivia felt the power of forgiveness, cooperation, and most importantly, that love not only saves souls, but also connects hearts once thought to be lost. James leaned slightly, whispering, "We start from here, one step at a time, and no one will be left behind." Olivia nodded, promising herself that this time she would not lose her way. If you've ever had to rebuild a bridge that seemed broken, where would you begin? Share your story in the comments and feel the power of forgiveness and love. Chapter 7. The Sound of Mama. The afternoon bathed the room in a warm, golden light, sunlight streaming through the large glass windows and illuminating the paintings on the walls. James gently brought Ella before a special painting, her mother cradling her in her arms, a gentle smile full of love on her face. The room was silent except for the soft rhythm of their breathing and the rustle of leaves outside in the breeze. Ella furrowed her brows, her eyes glistening as she studied the painting, then slowly reached out to touch the image of her mother. James knelt down, looking at his daughter with hope shimmering in his deep, warm gaze. "Ella, this is your mom. She's loved you from the very beginning. She's always wanted to hold you in her arms." Olivia stood behind her, heart tightening. It had been so long since she had seen her daughter respond so naturally to the image of her mother. Memories of the painful months when Ella had lost her voice, when Olivia felt helpless, flooded back, but instead of crushing her, they sparked a glimmer of hope. Stepping closer, Olivia's voice trembled. "Ella, look at Mommy." James shifted slightly to give Olivia space. She bent down, her hands shaking as she gently touched her daughter's shoulder, her eyes brimming with love. Ella furrowed her brow again, then looked at both of them, her gaze lighting up as if seeking the connection she had lost for so long. In that moment, time seemed to stop. Olivia felt every heartbeat of her daughter, every breath of her own. She remembered the months of despair, the sleepless nights by Ella's bedside, the countless times she had wondered if her daughter would ever call out Mama again. And now, standing before the painting, the mingling of joy and anticipation made her throat tighten. James softly held Olivia's hand, whispering, "Patience. Everything will come." Olivia smiled through her tears, but these were tears of hope, a promise that they would face every challenge together. James turned to Ella, his heart full, yet trying to stay calm so as not to frighten her. He pointed gently to the painting, his voice quivering, but warm. "Ella, do you remember her? She's loved you so much. She's always wanted to hear you say Mama." Ella looked up, her lips parting, her eyes tilting toward Olivia. A silent, breathless moment hung in the air, as if the entire room was waiting for a miracle. Olivia leaned down, her eyes wide, her heart pounding, feeling every tiny heartbeat respond to her presence. "Ma. Ma." Ella's voice came softly, hesitant, like a faint echo from a distant memory. Olivia felt the world light up in that instant, tears streaming uncontrollably. James held their daughter's hand, his eyes glowing with joy, a breath mingled with emotion and relief escaping him. "That's right. You said it, Ella. You called Mama." Olivia moved closer, kneeling beside her, enveloping her in a tight embrace, feeling the small hands cling to her as if never letting go. "Oh, my love, Mommy has missed you so much." Her voice choked with emotion, trembling in waves. Ella responded with a tiny squeeze, her eyes sparkling like a mirror reflecting both past pain and present happiness. That moment became a milestone not just for Olivia, but for James as well, who had patiently stood by waiting quietly for the miracle. He smiled, though his eyes shimmered with deep emotion. The sound of Mama rang out like a new promise, heralding a future of healing and love. The scene ended with Olivia looking at James, her voice quivering but full of feeling. "James, we did it. She called me." The room was so still that their breathing seemed to merge into one. Ella leaned against Olivia, her eyes still glistening after saying Mama. Hesitant at first, she suddenly let out a laugh, a clear, sparkling sound, like the first rays of sunlight streaming through the window. Olivia froze, her heart shattering into tiny pieces, only to be reassembled into pure joy. James stepped closer, cautious, yet brimming with happiness. "She's laughing, Olivia. She's really laughing." His voice trembled, his eyes shining, and the golden afternoon light streaming through the windows seemed brighter than ever. Olivia felt the vibrations of joy in the room, realizing once again that happiness was not a luxury, but the simple moments capable of changing the world. Ella shrugged her tiny hand, pointing at the painting, her eyes shining Mama smile. Her voice was soft but determined. Olivia took a deep breath, holding her daughter's hand. Mommy is always here, my love, and I'll never leave you." Tears flowed, mingling with her daughter's smile as she felt every heartbeat and breath of happiness filling the room. James stood beside them both, witness and support, sensing the connection forming. He gently squeezed Olivia's hand. "We've come a long way, but this moment is worth everything." No further words were needed. Their eyes spoke volumes, gratitude, understanding, and a deep, quiet love. Ella's laughter rang out again, a gentle melody, soothing months of despair, erasing the remaining shadows in Olivia's heart. This was not just the laughter of a child, it was the sign of love, restored, a family finding its way back to one another. The small room had become unusually warm. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, spilling onto the glossy wooden floor and creating sparkling streaks across the room. Ella sat on Olivia's lap, her tiny hands gripping her mother's shirt, yet her eyes never left James, the man who had brought her the first smile after months of silence. Olivia felt her heart race, a mixture of happiness and anxiety. Part of her wanted to hold Ella tightly, while another part realized that it was James who had opened the door for her daughter, a piece of bright sky she had thought would never appear. She trusts him. And I, Olivia whispered to herself, her voice choked with emotion. James sat down across from them, gently holding the painting of birds in flight that they had just completed. "Look, she's telling stories through the strokes, Olivia," he said, his voice deep yet warm, eyes glistening. Ella pointed to each line and giggled. "Fly, fly, Mama, see." Her laughter mingled with her clumsy words, making Olivia unable to hold back tears. In that moment, the three of them seemed suspended in a world of their own, where only love, trust, and hearts finding rhythm together existed. Olivia reached out to smooth Ella's hair, feeling warmth radiate through her tiny hands. James leaned in slightly, whispering, "We'll keep moving forward together, Olivia. No one will be left behind anymore." A sense of peace filled the room, yet it also marked a profound change. A new bond had been forged, unbreakable. Olivia realized that trust and love could not only heal wounds, but also rebuild bridges she thought were lost. The late afternoon sunlight gradually faded, yet the room remained radiant in its own way, through laughter, through the glimmering eyes of three souls finding one another. Ella clung to her mother's shoulder, then turned to James, her eyes shining with innocence. "Mama, Mama." Olivia nearly collapsed into her daughter's embrace, the overwhelming surge of emotion making it impossible to stay composed. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not tears of pain or despair, but of happiness, drops of rain, after a long, relentless storm of loss and loneliness. You said it to me," she stammered, her voice choked with joy. James looked at the mother and daughter, his smile gentle, yet filled with emotion. "Ella has found her voice again, and we are finding each other again," he whispered, placing a hand lightly on Olivia's shoulder, silently telling her that now all fears and doubts could be set aside. Ella hugged her mother tightly, then wrapped her arms around James, a simple embrace that carried all the trust, love, and gratitude they shared. Time seemed to pause, leaving only the beating of hearts, sighs of happiness, and the gentle vibration of love in every moment. Olivia felt James's presence as indispensable in her life, and she knew that from now on, they would build a safe, loving world together for Ella. The emotional climax was reached not with grand words, but with simple yet powerful gestures of love, a glance, a smile, a hug. Olivia understood that true miracles existed in the hesitant word "mama," in the radiant smile, in a heart opening to love and being loved again. If you ever witness a child calling their mother for the first time, how would you react? Share your story or the feelings you experienced when seeing this small yet priceless miracle in the comments below. Chapter 8. Confronting Prejudice. The Harris Corporation press room was vast, the cold lights casting sharp beams down onto rows of neatly arranged chairs, creating a space that felt both formal and tense. Camera lenses pointed directly at James, the young and powerful CEO, a man rarely revealing his emotions. But today there was a trace of unease in his eyes. Olivia stood behind him, feeling her heart pound with each beat, her hands gently clasped together. She knew this wasn't just a press conference, it was a trial by prejudice, public opinion, and even James's own family. The whispers, the skeptical glances, the trap questions from reporters, they all swirled like a storm pressing down on James's shoulders. Suddenly a reporter spoke. "Mr. Harper, many people say that your excessive attention to your personal family could affect the company's performance. What is your response to this?" James froze for a moment, his eyes flashing the familiar confidence tinged with tension. Olivia knew that even a slight hesitation could give fuel to gossip. She stepped forward, her gaze steady at the camera, her voice strong yet soft. Harris Corporation is not just about business or profit. It's about people, about love, about commitment. James Harper is not only a CEO, he is also a father, a partner, an inspiration. And his dedication to his family, to me, is proof of true leadership, responsibility, care, and integrity. The press room fell silent. Olivia's words went beyond defending James. They were a powerful statement about the value of humanity in the high-pressure, cutthroat world of CEOs. Skeptical eyes slowly shifted to surprise, then admiration. She glanced at James, offering a gentle smile filled with trust. "We will get through this together." "Right." Their eyes met, a silent statement of strength. In the private conference room, the walls paneled with dark wood, the light softer but still formal. James's family, his father, mother, and sister, sat across from him and Olivia. The air was heavy, each breath weighted with tension. Olivia approached, slightly bowing in respect, but with unwavering determination in her heart. "I understand your concern for James," Olivia began, her voice calm yet firm. "But James is not someone who will sacrifice responsibility or love for the sake of gossip. He is both a CEO and a father, and now my partner." James's mother frowned, her voice rigid. "Olivia, you must understand that he needs to focus on the company. Family is important, but it shouldn't always come first." James looked at his mother, eyes glistening, but voice resolute. "Mother, I know my responsibilities, but if I cannot be a good father, then all my achievements are just soulless numbers. Ella needs me, and I cannot ignore that." Olivia felt her heart ache, yet it was a bittersweet pain witnessing James stand firm against family prejudice while fully giving his love to their daughter. She gently squeezed his hand. We don't have to choose between family and work. We can find balance building a future where love and responsibility walk together. James's sister cleared her throat, her voice tinged with doubt. But this won't be easy. Public opinion won't forgive him if they see him as too soft in front of the media. James smiled, his eyes shining with determination. Softness or true emotion? Mother and sister, you will understand. I will not let my daughter grow up in fear or without love. I will protect this family no matter what anyone says. Olivia looked at James, then both turned to face his family with unwavering resolve. A heavy, silent moment passed, yet it was filled with hope. This was the first step toward breaking every prejudice. Tears fell on James's cheeks, not from weakness, but because he had proven the strength of love and responsibility. The grand hall of Harris headquarters, usually reserved for public meetings and product launches, now glowed under bright white lights, reflecting off the polished marble floor. Cameras, lenses, and microphones swarmed James and Olivia like predatory birds, capturing every gesture. Questions flew like arrows. Will you dedicate all your time to your family? Will this affect the company? Olivia stood by James, her heart racing like a drumbeat. She remembered her daughter, the clumsy laugh, curious eyes, fear of being abandoned. Despite the pressure, she lightly squeezed James's hand, silently saying, "We face this together." James stepped onto the podium, his face calm, but eyes ablaze with rare determination. His voice, deep and warm, reached every heart in the room. I am a CEO, yes, but first and foremost, I am Ella's father. Every decision I make is for my daughter and for the future of this family. I do not fear the media. I do not fear gossip, because love and responsibility outweigh any public opinion. A ripple of murmurs spread across the room. Cameras focused on Olivia's face, tears shimmering. The audience could feel the tension, the weight of each word, each glance. Olivia inhaled deeply, voice trembling yet strong. We will not hide our love, and we will protect our daughter. People may doubt, but only courageous hearts know what true love really is. For a moment, reporters fell silent. No questions about business or markets remained, only admiration lingered in the air. James lowered his voice, a gentle smile appearing. I will be a great CEO, but I will be an even better father than any number on a balance sheet. Olivia embraced James, tears streaming down her cheeks, imagining Ella saying to her in that moment, I'm proud of you, Mama. The room was hushed, public scrutiny drowned by the power of true love. The top-floor conference room where every major decision of Harris Group was made had now become a tense battleground. Cold LED lights reflected off the glossy walnut table, casting shadows across the tense faces of directors, lawyers, and financial advisors. Olivia stood beside James, feeling as if every gaze was fixed on her, judging, scrutinizing every gesture. A young director spoke up, his tone dripping with sarcasm. James, spending too much time on family matters will affect our market expansion plans. Olivia clenched James's hand, her heart pounding, the fear of losing her daughter visible in her expression. But just as she was about to step back, James turned to her, his eyes firm yet full of trust. Olivia, I won't abandon our daughter, and I won't abandon the company either. We can find balance, but those who don't understand true love will never understand this. Olivia inhaled deeply, feeling the emptiness inside her gradually filled with strength from his words. She stepped forward, her voice trembling, yet resolute. We are responsible for the company, but first and foremost, we are responsible for our daughter. And anyone who wants to oppose this should understand love and family are not things to be measured or weighed. Another director, face full of doubt, tried to restrain his tone. But we need a clear plan. James smiled, eyes unwavering. My plan is simple. My daughter should never have to choose between her parents. I will lead the company, but I will never lose my family. Olivia saw James looking at their daughter in his imagination, a silent tear rolling down his cheek. For the first time in months, she felt she was no longer alone. That moment seemed to calm the tension in the room, giving way to love and determination. The pressure in the conference room hadn't fully lifted, But now the sunlight slanted through the tall glass windows, casting a golden glow over the tense faces. James stood in the center, reassuring everyone with a calm yet decisive voice. "We can move forward together, but I will not sacrifice family for profit or reputation." Olivia, standing beside him, her hand trembling but her gaze steady, looked at James and saw trust and unspoken love in every gesture. She understood then that past worries, jealousy, and helplessness had only been tests to make them stronger together. She inhaled deeply, stepped forward, and gently held his hand. "James, thank you for not abandoning our daughter. I want to work with you not just for Ella, but for us too." The directors, previously skeptical, fell silent. The tense atmosphere softened into quiet reflection, their sighs echoing like a rhythm of silent acceptance. Some pressed their lips together or furrowed their brows, but no one dared to oppose James and Olivia. They realized that the love and determination of these two people could not be underestimated. Suddenly, Ella ran in, wrapping her arms around her mother's legs, then looked at James with bright, shining eyes. Both parents met her gaze, and in that instant, Olivia and James understood that all hardships and prejudices became meaningless when love and family were what they fought to protect. Tears of joy streamed down Olivia's face, and James smiled, feeling for the first time in months the complete serene happiness of the moment. If you've ever witnessed or experienced a moment where love and trust helped overcome prejudice or pressure, share your story. In your opinion, is family truly the greatest source of strength in life? Comment below. Part 9. Voices of Hope Event. The Grand Hall of Harris Corporation glowed under warm yellow lights, with portraits and photographs of Ella displayed elegantly on glass shelves and stands, creating a space that felt both luxurious and intimate. The scent of fresh flowers mingled with the soft sound of footsteps and murmurs of the guests, sending a strange surge of emotion through Olivia's heart. She stood at the edge of the room, watching the audience file in. Her eyes lingered on the thoughtful gazes of the guests and the light reflecting off the glass of Ella's photo, her smile radiant. That image brought back memories of the months she and James had spent struggling to help their daughter find her voice again. Happiness, worry, and pride blended together, creating an overwhelming wave of emotion she could barely contain. Below, James stood tall, his tailored black suit hugging his strong yet elegant frame. His hands were loosely clasped as he silently observed each guest entering the hall. He said nothing, merely smiling and exchanging a look with Olivia that spoke volumes. In that moment, Olivia felt a clear message. All the efforts, tears, and sleepless nights had been worth it. In the quiet moment, she heard Ella's voice from the far end of the hall, hesitant yet determined as she prepared to step onto the stage. Olivia squeezed her hands tightly, closing her eyes as if gathering every ounce of love and energy so her daughter could feel it. Golden light fell across Ella's face as she slowly stepped forward, eyes glistening with tears but shining brightly. Olivia whispered, "Everything is finally lighting up. My child, you are about to shine." Ella stood on the stage, the spotlight highlighting her golden hair. She gently held the microphone, her hands trembling, yet her face radiated determination. The audience fell silent, their eyes fixed on this small yet resilient girl. As the first notes played, slightly uncertain but clear, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Olivia stood beside James, heart tightening as she heard her daughter sing, recalling the time when Ella had almost lost her voice after the accident. Each note felt like a miraculous step forward, each sound dispelling all her doubts and fears. James tilted his head, eyes shining with pride. He looked at his daughter, then glanced at Olivia, his gaze full of gratitude and love. Olivia felt her heart beat in sync with his, not with the helplessness or fear of before, but with the joy of standing beside a family slowly healing. For a brief moment, Ella's music and smile illuminated the hall. Guests began to clap quietly, careful not to interrupt the magic unfolding. No one spoke, only listened. And in Olivia's heart, a light of hope appeared like never before. Her daughter's voice was not merely sound, but a bridge reconnecting once broken hearts. The notes floated through the vast hall, and Ella seemed completely immersed in her song. Her small eyes sparkled with excitement, her smile a message to everyone. I did it. Each word, each melody resonated within everyone, a reminder of the power of love and perseverance. Olivia stood still, tears streaming down her face. Her heart felt as though it would burst as she watched her daughter stand confidently and courageously, overcoming every fear and silent pain from the past. She remembered the nights sitting by Ella's bedside, listening to her breathing, guiding her to practice speaking, every drop of sweat and tear invested in her progress. And now the result was clear before her eyes. James stood below the stage eyes, focused, every muscle in his face taut with emotion. He could not hide his pride, nor the endless gratitude he felt toward Olivia, the mother who had patiently and tirelessly devoted herself to their daughter. He realized that this moment was not only Ella's achievement, but the result of their shared journey and love as a family of three. The audience began to rise, applause echoing as if to break down all barriers and prejudices. Their sound mingled with Ella's singing, creating a harmony of intense yet gentle emotion. Olivia turned to James, their eyes meeting, needing no words, only understanding and unspoken promise. "We have weathered the storm together, and we will continue to do so." In that moment, have you ever felt your heart stir, witnessing a child triumph over challenges and seeing love and patience transform the impossible into reality? Share your feelings in the comments to help spread hope and belief. The final notes of the song echoed through the hall, and Ella lowered her voice, her eyes sparkling like stars. For a brief moment, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath, only the pounding hearts of those witnessing the scene breaking the silence. When the last note faded, a thunderous applause erupted, reverberating across the grand hall. Some guests shed tears while many stood clapping nonstop. Olivia stepped closer to the stage, legs trembling but eyes shining with pride. She bent down and embraced her daughter, tears streaming down, mingling with Ella's laughter. For the first time, mother and daughter shared pure, unrestrained joy. Olivia no longer felt the helplessness or pain of the past years. Each tear was a testament to a long journey of patience, effort, and unconditional love. James stood below the stage, his heart skipping a beat at the sight of this happiness. He took a deep breath, stepped onto the stage, placed his hand on Olivia's shoulder, and looked into her tear-filled eyes. No words were needed. A single glance was enough for them to understand each other, understand their daughter, and realize that every effort had been worthwhile. He whispered, "She did it. Because of us." Ella turned to look at James, then hugged her mother, their laughter and her song blending together, spreading happiness throughout the hall. The guests around them weren't just applauding, they were marveling at the power of family love, perseverance, and the true values the family was demonstrating. That moment made all prejudices and idle chatter outside feel meaningless. All that remained was love, faith, and a simple yet profound happiness. Have you ever witnessed a moment when faith and love turned the impossible into reality? Share your feelings in the comments to help spread hope. The grand hall was now filled with warm golden light reflecting off every emotional face. Ella stood on the stage, her small hands gently gripping the microphone, eyes glistening as she looked down at the audience. Olivia's heart felt like it might burst with pride. She couldn't hold back, stepping up beside her daughter, placing her hand lightly on Ella's shoulder as if transmitting courage and absolute safety. James stood nearby, eyes fixed, full of wonder, joy, and a hint of trembling, witnessing for the first time the power of family love and the silent efforts of mother and daughter. He let out a gentle sigh, a radiant smile spreading across his face. All tension, all difficulties, all previous doubtful glances seemed to vanish instantly. Ella began to sing the second song, her voice hesitant at first, then gradually growing stronger and more confident. She looked at her mother, then James, and then at the entire audience, each gaze a bridge connecting emotion, trust, and hope. The notes resonated not just as a song, but as proof that miracles truly exist when love and patience never give up. The audience watched in silence, then rose simultaneously, their applause stretching and echoing across the hall. Olivia took a deep breath, hugging Ella tightly, tears streaming down, yet her smile remained unwavering. James stepped forward, placing his arm around both mother and daughter, as if to hold this perfect moment forever. In that instant, all distance, misunderstandings, and doubts melted away. All that remained was love, happiness, and an unbreakable connection. Together, they had created a story no challenge could touch. Have you ever experienced a moment when faith and love made the whole world feel perfect? Share your story in the comments, and let's spread this feeling of happiness together. Part 10. A Christmas Eve Proposal. The living room glowed under the twinkling Christmas lights draped across the ceiling. Outside the window, snowflakes drifted softly as if writing a silent lullaby in the night air. The fireplace crackled warmly, its flames casting a golden glow on Olivia as she sat on the sofa holding a cup of hot cocoa in her hands. Ella ran around the towering Christmas tree, hanging bright red ornaments and dainty bows. Her laughter mingled with the gentle carols playing in the background, making the whole room feel like a fairy tale come alive. Olivia smiled faintly, her heart brimming with happiness, yet a part of her still trembled as though she couldn't fully believe in this peace. James entered from the hallway holding a small velvet-wrapped gift. His eyes immediately found Olivia. The firelight reflected in his gaze, making them deeper, warmer than ever. He stood still for a moment, simply taking it in. The woman who had once been broken by grief now sat there, radiant, strong, and more beautiful than she had ever been. At that moment, James's heart clenched. He realized that everything he had ever sought, warmth, home, true love, was right here within reach. Olivia looked up, her eyes meeting his. A silence fell between them, yet within that silence lived countless unspoken words, and they both knew tonight would be unforgettable. Ella placed the golden star atop the Christmas tree and turned back with a wide smile. She ran to James, wrapping her little arms around his legs. He bent down, lifted her into his arms, then glanced at Olivia. His eyes glowed with warmth, but also flickered with something rare nervousness, the kind that comes when a man is about to risk his entire heart. He set Ella down on the soft rug before the fireplace where she happily played with small gifts. Then James drew in a deep breath and stepped toward Olivia. She looked up in surprise as he slowly lowered himself to one knee. "James, what are you doing?" Olivia whispered, eyes widening. James didn't answer right away. He opened the red velvet box in his hand. The firelight caught on the diamond ring inside, scattering sparkles across the room. Olivia pressed her hand to her chest, her heartbeat loud and uneven, almost suffocating. Olivia Harris. His voice was low, trembling with emotion. "You've endured the darkest nights, carrying the weight of the world for your daughter. But you were never truly alone. I've seen your strength, your courage, and I've fallen in love with every part of you. I want to be your shoulder, your shelter, so you'll never have to face this world alone again." Olivia's breath hitched, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks. She looked at the ring, then into James's deep eyes. In them she saw pure sincerity and a future her heart longed for but had never dared to believe in. Ella looked up, her innocent eyes wide with wonder. "Mommy, what's happening?" Olivia couldn't answer, her heart was trembling too much. The room fell still save for the crackle of the fireplace. Olivia sat frozen, her chest tightening under the weight of overwhelming emotion. Before her knelt James, not the powerful CEO, not a distant man, but someone who laid down his pride and placed all his love in her hands, waiting for her answer. Tears streamed freely down Olivia's face. She lifted a trembling hand to cover her mouth, as if holding back a sob. Memories rushed in the day her husband was taken from her in a tragic accident, the endless nights she cried herself to sleep with her child in her arms, the hopeless days that felt like they would never end. And then, the image of James, the man who sat beside her daughter wearing a silly superhero mask, the man who sketched little birds, the man who brought laughter back when it seemed gone forever. Olivia bent forward, her trembling hands clasping James's. Her voice broke as she whispered, "James, I don't know if I deserve you, but you've given my daughter and me more than anyone ever could. I thought I would never open my heart again, until you walked in." Ella dashed toward them, wrapping her small arms around both of them. Her bright, innocent voice chimed, "Mommy, say yes." Olivia burst into laughter through her tears. She looked at James, then at her daughter, her heart overflowing with love and faith like never before. Finally, she nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, I do." Ella squealed with joy, her laughter echoing like silver bells. James rose, pulling Olivia into his arms, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead. That single nod sealed away a past of grief and opened a brand new chapter, one filled with hope, warmth, and a love that would last a lifetime. James held Olivia tightly in his arms, as if afraid that if he let go, this miraculous moment would vanish. On her finger, the diamond ring sparkled under the glow of the fireplace, and the shimmering Christmas lights an eternal promise made visible. Ella clapped her tiny hands with delight, her laughter ringing like silver bells. "Yea, Mommy said yes." Her giggles filled the room, sweeping away every shadow and scar that had once weighed down Olivia's heart. She lifted her gaze, meeting James's eyes, eyes that held happiness, trust, and a love vast enough to heal even the deepest wounds. James leaned down his lips, brushing hers in a kiss both tender and full of passion. Outside the window, snow continued to fall in soft white petals like pure blossoms, celebrating this newfound joy. Olivia closed her eyes, letting herself melt into his warmth, into a love she once thought she would never feel again. And in that instant, Olivia understood this was more than a proposal. This was redemption. The steady hand that had pulled her out of despair. A home reborn for her daughter. The chapter she finally dared to dream of after all the darkness. James whispered, his voice thick with emotion against her ear. "Merry Christmas, Olivia. From today on, you'll never be alone again." Through her tears, Olivia smiled, squeezing his hand tightly. Beneath the glittering lights, their kiss became the beginning of something new, a family, a future. The wind outside rattled the chimes on the porch as winter slipped quietly through the cracks of the night. Yet within the living room, warmth reigned. Olivia nestled beside James on the sofa, her head resting on his shoulder. The ring shimmered on her finger, a promise that she would never again walk alone in the dark. On the rug, Ella hugged her oversized teddy bear, her innocent laughter lighting up the room. Every now and then she looked up at her mother and James, her smile brighter than the Christmas star, because her little world finally felt whole. James wrapped his arms around both Olivia and Ella, pulling them close. His voice was low, steady, and full of quiet awe. "This is the Christmas I've always dreamed of. Not the grand parties, not the million-dollar deals, but this moment having both of you here with me." Olivia looked up, her tear-streaked face glowing with joy. She whispered back, "And me too, James. Everything I need is right here." Ella suddenly climbed into their embrace, her small arms circling both of them. Her voice was soft but certain, carrying the innocence of truth. "Now we are a family." Her words broke Olivia into fresh sobs while James pulled them both even closer, as though vowing never to let go. Under the radiant glow of the Christmas lights, three wounded hearts finally found one another, mending, merging, becoming a home. Outside, the church bells rang across the snowy town, a hymn of blessing, for a love that had endured loss, defied doubt, and finally reached its perfect haven. And perhaps this was the true Christmas miracle, the miracle of patience. Inside the home, bathed in soft, golden light, Christmas music played gently in the background, blending with the sound of laughter. A lush green tree stood tall in the center of the living room, glowing with countless tiny lights, red and silver ornaments and shimmering tinsel. Olivia carefully hung a glass star on one branch, while James lifted Ella high so she could place a little wooden angel at the very top. "Careful, my little Princess," James chuckled, his strong arm steady as he held her. Ella giggled, her blonde hair falling over her shoulders, her bright blue eyes sparkling with pure joy. When the ornament was finally in place, she turned, wrapped her arms around James's neck, and suddenly spoke out loud, her voice clear and sure. "Mommy, this is my superhero, my Superman." The room fell silent for a heartbeat. Olivia looked up, her hand still resting on the branch, tears welling in her eyes. Those simple words felt like a miracle reaching into the deepest corners of her heart. The little girl who had once lost her voice, who had pushed away every connection, was now speaking freely, and more than that, giving James a sacred place in her world. James hugged Ella tightly, his own eyes glistening but shining with joy. He turned to Olivia, and in that look was everything gratitude, love, and a silent vow that he would never leave them. Olivia stepped closer, wrapping her arms around both of them, whispering, "Maybe this is the family I once prayed for, even when I didn't believe I deserved it." James smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her hair. "It's not about whether you deserve it, Olivia. It's about the fact that we deserve each other." Ella clapped her hands to the rhythm of the music, her laughter ringing out. That laughter filled the room, blending with the glow of the star atop the tree, a living proof that love and patience could break through walls of silence, bringing three once broken hearts together again. Outside, snow continued to blanket the rooftops, but inside, their hearts had finally found the warmth of a true home. Family is not built on titles or status. It's built on hearts, on kindness, and on the small miracles born of patience. Have you ever witnessed a miracle born from patience? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget, leave your rating for this story from 0 to 10. If you'd like to continue this journey with more CEO love stories, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter. We'll always be here with stories of love, healing, and hope.